What's up, everyone? My name's Taylor Nemechek, and this is Who's That Saint? So welcome back to all you returners, and welcome to anyone who this is your first episode of Who's That Saint? Today, we have a really interesting saint, a dragon-slaying saint. His name is St. George. So the question is, who is St. George? St. George's date of birth is uncertain, but is known to be sometime in the later 3rd century, and his first proof of existence comes from an ancient historical Greek text, in which his name was among several that were listed. So in the later 5th century, Pope Gelasius claimed that St. George was to be among the saints who, in his words, their names are justly reverenced among men, but their actions are known only to God. And St. George was born to the parents of Gerontios and Polychronia. Gerontios was a Roman officer, and Polychronia was a Greek native. And both of his parents were Christians and from rich and noble families. When George became old enough, he joined the army of the Roman Emperor Diocletian. Now, you guys are becoming pretty familiar with the Emperor Diocletian. This is the 3rd time he's shown up in these episodes, so he's kind of racking up quite the name for himself. But anyway, George really excelled in the army and quickly rose through the ranks. He became a tribunus and served as an imperial guard by his late 20s. So he was moving right along and moving right through the status in the army. On February 24th, in the year of 303, Diocletian, who, as you all know, just absolutely despises Christians and the Christian faith, made an order that any Christian that the army came across would be arrested. And George refused to follow this order given by Diocletian, and he even told this to the emperor, which did not make Diocletian happy at all. But the emperor highly valued his friendship with George's father. And so this is where all the problems started. At first, Diocletian kept this dispute with George quiet, but then George, being a good guy, he started proclaiming his beliefs to his peers, so the emperor was no longer able to just keep this quiet and on the down low. So what does Diocletian do? He starts by trying to convert George to believe in the Roman gods. So he does this by offering George land, money, and slaves as different incentives to try and make George offer a sacrifice to the Roman gods. But no matter what he offers George refuses each and every one and just continues proclaiming his faith and his beliefs to his peers and those in the army. And after several different attempts, Diocletian, finally just being fed up with George and his stubbornness and his strong belief in his faith, orders George's execution, as he does with pretty much any of the great saints that Diocletian runs up against. And before George's death, he gave all his money to the poor. But after all this, George had to go through several different torture sessions. And one of the tortures he had to endure was being lacerated on a wheel of swords. And this required him to be resuscitated 3 times. But somehow, by God's grace, George continued to just barely stay alive. It wasn't pretty, but he was alive and would not die. And so, on April 23rd, in the year 303, Diocletian, with not a single thread of patience left, ordered George's decapitation. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, St. George is a dragon slayer, or basically there's a lot of stories with him dealing with fighting dragons or some other type of monster. So in one of these stories, there was a dragon or a crocodile who had made a nest in a spring which provided water for the town of Cyrene, which is thought to be around common-day Libya. And the people of this town were unable to collect any water because of the beast, and they tried several different things to make the beast disappear, or to go away. So what they started with were they would offer a sheep for this dragon, or the crocodile, and the monster would leave the nest for a short period of time, but then the sheep would disappear, and the monster, having its nice snack, would return to the nest. And they would do this every single day, but the same results continued to happen. So then someone had this brilliant idea, stupid idea, that a maiden would be as effective as sending a sheep. Like, I don't know about you, that doesn't seem to line up quite to me. But the townspeople decided on this, so they would draw straws to decide who the maiden would be to be offered up. And this went on just fine, I mean, as good as it could, until one day the princess's straw was drawn. And this didn't fly quite as much as just the common maiden that would be any other day. And so the monarch tried pretty much everything to save the princess, but the people would not have it. They had to offer up their daughters, their sisters, every single day, so the monarch wasn't going to get out of this one. So the people took her and offered her to the dragon, but before she could be eaten, George appeared and fought the dragon and ended up killing the dragon. And while fighting the dragon, he protected himself with the sign of the cross. And so, once the dragon was killed, from this point on, the citizens abandoned their pagan ways and were converted to Christianity. With all these great stories of fighting off dragons, St. George is often depicted wearing armor and holding a lance and fighting off a dragon. And this dragon symbolizes Christ's enemies, as the demons and Satan. And it's here that we see the fight of good and evil. And just like St. George was such a proficient soldier in his earthly life, fighting for Diocletian and his army, we see him now fighting in the fight of good and evil. And so let us ask him to be there with us to fight the fight of good and evil that we fight every single day and every moment of our day. And St. George's feast day is on April 23rd, and he is the patron saint of England and Catalonia. So there's our answer to who is St. George. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something you didn't already know about this dragon slaying saint. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit like as well. And check out all our other episodes of Who's That Saint and see all the other great saints in the Communion of Saints. And make sure to comment below if you have any saint ideas for other episodes or just other video ideas that you'd like me to see put on this channel. And as always, make sure to just stay tuned for next week's episode of Who's That Saint. So we'll see you next time. God bless.